You'll find the right one. There it is. You don't want the thistle seed. That's for the goldfinches. And there was just one there a little while ago. Beautiful, beautiful. One of my favorite birds is the goldfinch. Let's see. We got the farmer's irrigation active out there, way, way, way out in the field, if you can see it. Huge irrigation assembly. Enormous. A couple 100 yards long on wheels. That moves about under hydro pressure. The cornfield is enormous. It's at least 7 foot tall, minimum. I see a little rabbit making his way. There he is. He's safe. Today, I want to talk about something. Lately I've been on a pruning spree. And my last video was about cutting away a large, very well fruited branch, which I did in the video. And here is the tree now, this persimmons tree. And the reason why I have the ladder here is because I was up in the ladder not long ago and I tied up a couple of these branches that also have a lot of fruit and that are rather horizontal, too horizontal for my taste. I like getting the tree to grow vertically like you see most of it is doing now. But Debbie convinced me to take these beautiful branches with beautiful fruit on them, as you can see, and to save them this year until after the harvest so I can give more of these fruits away. And she convinced me. I thought it was a good idea, so I tied them and I secured them to other vertical branches, and they'll be fine until the end of the season. Then I will clip them away to form a more vertical tree for the future and for the longevity, the long-term protection of the tree in order to get better long-term results into perpetuity. So I was looking at that. I always out here constantly just looking around, enjoying nature and enjoying the peacefulness of the yard and all of the wonderful things that summer brings to our lives. Those of us that are attuned to such things and enjoy nature, enjoy growing, or even if you don't enjoy growing, just watching a wonderful sunset. How about it? I can do that, and I'm sure so can you. There are many, many things to be appreciated all times of the year, every season. I delight in all the seasons, but this is probably my favorite, mostly because of the harvest, because I'm not trapped indoors as much. I feel more liberated and able to do the things and pursue the things that I love enormously. It's always nice to be active and to remain active, both for your psychological well-being and your physical well-being. All of these things are interdependent on one another. So it is that we like to be able to participate in them whenever it's convenient and available. Summer makes it available and convenient because the weather cooperates most of the time. Incidentally, I just thought of something. That's very little bit what we're going to show. I'm going to do some pruning here as I started off this video. But I was just thinking about an earlier experience because Debbie started screaming in the house. oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? And it was a frog. It was one of those pine barren frogs that are rather rare. I've never witnessed them around here for my entire life. And we've been here in this home for 45 years. I've never seen them until recently. And these little I call them pine barren frogs. They're so cute, really. Sort of like in between a water frog, a bullfrog, and a toad. If I had to describe them, like a watery type toad. An amphibian in between, so to speak. And she started screaming, and I captured it. I captured it, and I released it. I released it right here. I released it right in these trees, these fig trees. Don't tell her. I told her I took it to the cornfield. But anyway, she's afraid of the little frogs and snakes. Oh, good God. Whenever I see a snake, I didn't see a snake. You will hear no mention of it. And they're very helpful, especially the black snakes. They're all the gardener snakes. I mean, they're very helpful. They eat a lot of mice and field mice and insects and things. And they're harmless, of course, to humans. They're not venomous in any way. And when you live out in the country, you're going to see these things. So. But I try, whenever I see them, I try to either capture them or chase them off, you know, so Debbie doesn't get an eyeball of them. But anyway, I've got these, and I mentioned these before, and in the last video too. These are nice little trees here that I put in the ground a couple of years ago in cuttings, just like this little cutting garden. Well, that was a cutting garden, and I've removed a lot of them when they were little and when they were getting in between and bigger. And see here, there's a big area where there's none. And over there's an area where there's none. And over here is an area where there's not. Well, anyway, I've given those away, and I've planted some in the ground here and there. And I left a few, and they're earmarked. And I'm going to give them to worthy future owners, proud owners of wonderful fig varieties. There's only 2 varieties here. There's 3 in my little fig garden, which I mentioned again the other day on my last video. Those 3 are Valle San Juan over there in the little garden. Valle San Juan, yeah, it's just a little garden. I don't have room for more figs. I don't want to grow, I could grow 100 of them. But I don't want to, not right now. It's not my goal. But I've got Italian 258, Valle San Juan, which is an Adriatic fig from Italy, my uncle's. And over here I have Black Madeira, right down there. And they're all doing nicely. These are from a prior year. The year before last I put in cuttings. And these are Ronde Bordeaux and Smith. Both Ronde Bordeaux and Smith. So you might say, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to prune? I'm going to prune these right now. And the reason why is this. See, they're in the shade, which I've mentioned to you. Oh, look at that sunset over there. Wow. See that? Look how pretty. Right through the Seijo tree. Beautiful sunset. So nice. Peaceful, calm, tranquil. Anyway, it's in the shade, which I plant in the shade. It's a method that I use because I usually get to transplanting my little cuttings too late in the season, or I find that they do better in partial shade. They get a little bit of sun as the sun moves through the leaves, and some of the sunshine shines through. I demonstrated that one day. But they're not going to grow normal in the shade like this. See, look at the color of these. You see how they're just a little pale? They're not real green. Now I could use an artificial Miracle Grow and spray the leaves with maybe a mixture of about a 1/3 teaspoon per quart. And I could spray those leaves and make them a little more green and look a little healthier, but they're fine. But trust me when I tell you, they're fine. I'm not going to do that because I don't like using artificial stuff. I'm just going to let them grow. They don't get quite the sunlight that they need to be wonderfully green and lusciously green, and But look at them. They're happy. They're very happy little plants. They're happy, and they're going to survive. They're going to survive nicely. And I explain what I'm going to do to make the root ball dense or condense underneath of the cuttings by chopping the little roots away very, very delicately occasionally, and get the root ball to turn in on itself and to thicken up. I'm doing all that. Here, you get a little bit more color because these are more established, even though there's no more sunlight. But these are more established. Beautiful, beautiful trees. But you're getting scraggly growth, the kind of growth that I always tell you not to do. There's a lot of reasons why it can result this way. Not just because they're in the shade or too much shade. And this is a perfect testament right here of just how foolish it is to grow your figs in the shade. Or even too much partial shade. Very, very little bit. They can tolerate a little if you want excellent results. If you want some results, okay, you can get some shade. But if you want perfect results, then you want zero shade. And here's a perfect example why. See, there's no fruit on here. Look. Now, you've seen all my trees. I've shown you my orchards, one after another in every location. Whether it's the front side orchard or the back orchard behind the barns, if it's over, on the island in Virginia. All of the fig trees that I've ever shown you in any location, they've always been very heavily laden with fruit. But is that the case here? Let's look. No. 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 No, 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 no everywhere. There is just no fruit. Too much shade. No fruit. So why prune? Well, they're getting too unruly. And I want the root balls to form very, very dense, although I've shoveled around them several times now. These trees are ready to give away, and they're going to be splendid. They're going to be very, very healthy and ready for the transplant in the fall or the spring. And these aren't going to be fruitful, so why let the energy be wasted in a bunch of superfluous branch formation? It's ridiculous. So I'm going to lob these off. Also, these will never harden off. They just they will not turn into hard wood. You see, they are doing it down here a little bit. You see this? They're beginning to lignify, but up here, they're never going to survive the winter. And I know that from experience. The winter's going to come along and just, it's going to be just like off with their heads. And they're going to be cut back by winter. So why not do it now and let all of the energy that is in the root system now and energized and alive, let it form deeper, stronger roots. I'll keep cutting around with the shovel, and I'll have these real dense root balls that will be protected. And the good wood will get thicker, faster. See that the wood that's already hardened off, see that? And there is good wood in there. I'll let that get thicker. And the thicker the wood, the more the insulation around the pulpwood, and the greater the propensity to survive the winter time. And we get these planted in someone's yard in the fall or the spring. We make sure there's plenty of winter mulch for the winter time. And I bet you odds that they're going to just do fine. They're going to do fine, and they're going to make somebody a very, very happy fig collector. And they're going to make marvelous additions to their collection of figs. These two wonderful figs that I found grow very nicely in the ground. And even in 7A here, I had no problem even with Smith. This is Smith. And you can see it did not get any winter damage. And it's right out in the open. There's nothing to block those northwest winds which are over there. They come right out of there. On the other side of my house, there's some protection from that. And that's you might say, a sweet spot. And I have a few trees over there, no problem. But I'm not having problems the last few winters, the last three winters for sure, probably 4. The last 3 winters for sure. I've had no problems. I'm very, very happy. It's almost like we're in another zone. In fact, I talked to a grower, a famous grower, a very popular grower, wonderful guy. And he was telling me, I was talking to Big Bill. And he told me that his area was rezoned recently, and I was surprised to hear that. He owns the Off the Beaten Path nursery near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he's just a great guy, and I really enjoy my interaction with him. I have for years, and I didn't know that his area had been rezoned, and it was turned up a notch, a bit of a warmer notch. I haven't looked into it to see if I have been here, but I don't think I have. I looked a little bit and didn't see anything, and I'm 7A here, but hey, my point is, Smith did well here in 7A and 7B. It survives. I have a very nice tree growing in 7B. Very excited about it. And if this was out in the sun, the full sun, these branches would be laden with heavily laden with fruit. Everywhere there would be fruit everywhere. Look at all the fruit there would be. And these branches would, of course, be thicker. They wouldn't be as lanky. They wouldn't be as thin. They would be more impressive and more fruit-bearing. They would just be something to marvel over, I'm absolutely sure. But in this flimsy state, because of the shade, they got to go. I want them to go. And I want my root balls to get more concentrated below the plant. And I want the hardened off wood to get thicker, because the thicker the better, and the more likely it is going to survive the cold winter. I'll put mulch down if I keep them until the spring to give to someone. Those that I give away in the fall, I'll put mulch for them, winter mulch, when we get them transplanted. But these are going to make beautiful branches, but I need to get them cut back. So let's see if I can round up Deb so she can hold the camera, or let me cut away at these, and I'll show you what they look like when I'm finished. And then I want to show you something else. So hang in there, don't go away. I know this video is getting a little lengthy, but I try to make them exciting or interesting. If you don't have anything to do and you're just sitting back and you've worked all day in this heat, and by the way, I think it's the 20, geez, I lose track of time, as you know. It's only I think one day after I posted the last video, which was on the 27th, so it must be the 28th or maybe the 29th. And yeah, I waited a day to post that, so it's the 29th of July. We're getting very close to August. And my last video showed my first main crop. I'm not doing anything on the container figs, because it's easy to get early main crop figs on the containers, because you can just start shuffling them early in the spring and get them out in the sun and then take them back when it's cold at night. Here I'm trying to catch that little rascal squirrel using pistachio nuts. I'll catch him. I'll catch him. He got another fig of mine. That little rascal, I missed one, and he got one of them. But anyway, what was I saying about the time of the year? Oh yeah, so I showed an early main crop fig, which was the de Tres Esplets, a Spanish fig, and I showed that and featured that in my last video. And then I also picked one, a Ronde Bordeaux, off of that big tree over there that you can see. That beautiful, one of my lovely, wonderful trees. And I got a little one off of there too, but de Tres Esplets, my memory came back to me. I had picked a main crop fig 5 days earlier, and a couple weeks earlier than that, I had gotten or a week earlier than that, I had gotten a Breber 2 weeks earlier. But the de Tres Esplets did have a main crop fig 5 days earlier than the one that Debbie and I devoured on video. So it's first, and it has been first for 3 years, but only by a little bit. And then I devoured a not so good example of the Ronde Bordeaux, but it was ripe and it was delicious. And I neglected to notice something. And here it is. I neglected to notice that my O'Rourke was getting ripe. Look, can you see that? And that one's ready to eat. And there's several of them. They're getting ripe all in the back. And there's a beautiful, beautiful one right there. Can you see at the end of my finger? Back there. They're getting ripe. And O'Rourke is a good fig. Its parent is Celeste. Of course, it's an LSU fig. And I like it very much, or it wouldn't be in my collection. It has a permanent place right here against the wall. And it's a very nice, very stout, very hardy. And Celeste is very hardy, one of the hardiest figs. And it's very interesting, the leaf patterns and all that. Sometimes these get confused with improved Celeste, a lot of times, especially in the nurseries. You've got to know that you're getting the real O'Rourke or the real improved Celeste, because they are different. And of course, improved Celeste is not Celeste. I've said that before. It's not Celeste. I wish they never named it that. They say improved Celeste. Celeste doesn't need a lot of improvement. Believe me, it's a wonderful fig. That's why they use it so much for crossbreeding. And we've talked about that ad nauseum. But there are wonderful varieties, both improved Celeste and O'Rourke. Very hardy, very vigorous, extremely productive. And I don't say that the flavor of O'Rourke merits even that of a perfectly ripe Celeste, because Celeste has that proclivity, that it has that quality of incredible intensification of flavors when it gets older and riper on the vine or on the branch. It just does. It's just one of those figs that does that. Let me see if I can get in here. And I would say that in that stage, the flavor is better than O'Rourke. But when you get O'Rourke, when it's very ripe, in its moment, I like to say sometimes, its second of perfection, that instant of perfection, when it is perfect, it's a very delicious, high-quality fig. It's larger than Celeste, generally. Oh, wow. No kidding. That's the best fig I've eaten of the main crop figs. And it's not going to be better than my perfect Ronde Bordeaux when they start ripening up. But it's better than that one I tested 2 days ago on video. I wish I'd have given that to Debbie. Darn it. She likes these too. I like to call it my domesticated fig. I don't know why. It just seems more properly, you know, with horse breeds, they talk about the different breeds. It's very fascinating to look into if you like horses. Some of them are more docile than others. Some of them are more excitable. Some of them are more intelligent. Some of them like human companionship much more than others. And, you know, figs are kind of, I don't know why. I mean, you know, some of them seem to be a little wilder or less domesticated. For some reason, I just get this feeling about O'Rourke that it's a very domesticated and very well-behaved fig, if that makes any sense. I don't think it probably does to you, but it's just a feeling that I have that I want to talk about. And they're just nice. There's not a lot of big issues. They don't split. I'm high and dry. You can see the trunk down there, very large, very substantial, very nice. High and dry. And I don't have a splitting problem. The figs are early. They're my probably third earliest fig, although they're coming in first, even more so than my Ronde Bordeaux. But did you notice something about the Ronde Bordeaux? See, the Ronde Bordeaux's not right up against the brick. Let's be fair. Let's be objectively fair and kind of rule out some of that subjectivity when we sort of favor a certain fig that is your favorite or another. Always try to be objective. This one's right up against the brick, and the sun is just intense. It beats up against the brick, and it generates heat all day long. And so we need to be fair. But I've had this tree in several locations. I had a really large one right behind my house out here. I've got it on video. I have several videos about that fig and other figs, if you go back and look. And it always came in a little bit later, just a little bit later than I'd say my Ronde Bordeaux. My Ronde Bordeaux would beat it out a little bit, not by much. And it's certainly beating it out this year because more are getting ripe. Although I didn't get one ripe one. I got the ripe one off the Ronde Bordeaux first. So it beat it out, really. But there's no more. There's just the rest of them aren't ripe. Here I have a lot of figs getting ripe now, and they will be for a long time, until they're all devoured. It's a good, solid fig tree for your collection. Is it a top tier fig and first, rated in the first 5? No, but I'd rate it for 7A, and for our region in the country, I would rate it at the top 10 because it's so reliable and dependable. It's there for you. It's there. You can count on it, and I love figs that we can count on. So for what it's worth, I highly recommend that you put a work in your collection of figs. Okay, and now I'm going to start pruning those 2-year-old cuttings, and I'm going to get to the point where I feel satisfied that I've done my work for today on this fig collection. Here, get them all cut back, and they'll be better under control. I'll be able to accomplish the objectives that I spoke to you about earlier, and they won't be shading out they're starting to even shade out my cuttings. I had to cut a few of these branches a few times now because they were hanging over my new cutting garden. So I clipped them off here and there and everywhere. I clipped them off because they were like growing over top in places like this. So I cut them away several times. But now I won't have to do that so much. They'll put out new branches, and the new branches will be lower, which is always good to form a lot of branches if you're concerned about scaffolding the way I always am. And that will make for a better tree in the future. So there's no reason that I should just let them to continue to grow like this, wild and uncontrolled, because I'm not going to get any fruit. There's no fruit. There's no figs. Why? Not enough sun. It's under the Seijo tree. What I've been saying for so long. And, I want to make sure that I make that point. Because from my personal experience, the more sun, the better. Period. It is not a controversy. Not for me, it's not. It's a indisputable fact. Okay? So, I'll put you on hold, and hopefully I'll be able to not mess up things. Don't count on it. And I'll be able to bring you back as soon as I get these pruned. Alright, that's not enough. I'm going to cut them down quite a bit more, but it's the beginning. The issue of whether or not or when to prune is certainly going to emerge, and I've clarified this in the past. In my opinion, it doesn't matter with figs. Okay, so you can prune whenever you like, for the most part. course, there's a lot of other rules about pruning when you're talking about San Pedro types, and we talked about those things. But if you want this kind of pruning, if you want to prune back, if you want to solidify your tree, condense it, you could cut a tree like this anytime you want, and it's going to be fine. Winter, summer, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in my experience. Okay, I'm running out of time. It's starting to get dark, so I'm going to continue. I can't do it with. I'll finish up when I'm finished making this video, and I'm going to cut them down quite a bit more. I'm going to finish up for tonight, and then tomorrow I'm going to really get in there and even cut back some of the hardened off wood, because I want to make them even lower to the ground than they are. And then when I give them away, they'll make wonderful gifts. They'll be in great shape, all of them. Next year I probably will plow out this garden and put a bunch of cuttings in here. Maybe I'll put some different new varieties, or I mean varieties I don't have already in the cutting garden. I don't want really new varieties anymore. Chasing varieties is not a good strategy. It's not one that I endorse. It's all dependent on your area and your zone. If you live in an area where you have caprification, then you can choose varieties that do better when they're caprified with the fig wasp. If you don't, well then you need to limit those varieties, I think, and not have as many of them in your collection. Certainly not all of them. I call them sometimes prima donna figs, because in this region of the country they are exactly that. They're just not going to be reliable and dependable. A fig that you can count on. Some of them require caprification or do much better when they're caprified. You know, even the common figs do better when they're caprified. You know, those in states like California. So caprification is something that adds a new dimension to the varieties that we in this region, this area of the country, aren't able to enjoy. We have to always be cognizant of that. I like to stick with the common varieties, and I like to stick with the adaptable, the varieties that I know have adapted well to, or can adapt well to the rigors of this area. So I'll put more cuttings in, but there'll be cuttings of fig trees, fig varieties that I know have already passed the test of time, and that I know I can count on and are well suited for this area. And I'll do that probably. But I want to take care of these and get them ready and free up a little more space and a little more sunshine for my little cutting garden, which is doing very nicely. So with that, thank you for visiting. I always enjoy your visits. I see the hummingbirds. Let's see if we can... Oh, that was a dragonfly there. Pretty soon the hummingbirds will stop. It's getting close to dark, and they'll take refuge in the trees, their sanctuary. I don't see any now. They're probably pretty much done for now. Good day.